Shwmae pawb. Hello everybody. Welcome to my wild Welsh garden. Well, when I looked out of my kitchen window yesterday morning, I saw this handsome fellow on the bird feeder. He's a male bullfinch and he has a lovely name in Welsh. It's Coch y Berllan, which means the red of the orchard, and I'm sure refers to the fact that these little birds are very partial to the buds of fruit trees. And years ago, they were considered a pest, but not any longer, and not in Wales anyway. I've been complaining such a lot about the weather. I'm very aware that some of you watching these videos live in really dry places. I know some of you haven't seen rain in any sort of significant quantities for quite a long time, and I'm quite envious of my rain. But I think that's kind of how it is now in the world, that there are extremes of weather. So we've just had the wettest winter on record, and other people have had the driest spell of weather on record, and maybe the hottest weather. But honestly, if I could possibly share some of my rain with you guys in the drier parts, I would certainly do so. And then the sun came out, and it's a lovely day and a lovely afternoon. And there's lots of these daisies in the lawn. And the dandelions have turned into clocks now. Seeds are blowing away on the wind. And there's a lot more insects around. There's a bumblebee here. And honeybees. Lots of honeybees. There are 4 bumblebees on this almond area. And quite a few of these little hoverflies flitting about the place. And they're so difficult to film because they're so quick. The little bees are back on the shed. And look what I found. Gosh, the female is a lot bigger than the male. And then she's going to go and find somewhere to lay her eggs. There's a little solitary bee. Could well be a red mason bee, just sitting on the edge of a terracotta pot. So I decided to do a fit count. So I got my metre square out on some forget-me-nots, and I counted 12 insects in the 10 minutes, 3 honeybees, 4 hoverflies, 1 little wasp, 1 solitary bee, and 3 other little flies, which I can't remember actually what the average is for May, but considering the last time I did it a couple of weeks ago, I had only 3 honeybees on the dandelions and nothing else. But everything else seems to be waking up. Now over there, on an emerging plant whose name escapes me for the moment, there is a damselfly. that may have just emerged from the pond. There it is. I've been chasing it round the leaf. Every time I come onto the side to film it, it goes round to the other side. Okay, we'll try a different tack. We'll try, because I don't think he's ready to fly yet. Try turning him over. There you go. And now I shall leave him in peace. I also wanted to talk about trees, because a couple of videos ago I said I was a bit worried about some of my trees because the leaves weren't coming out. Well, when we came, this was the only tree in the garden. It's a flowering cherry and it was in a pretty parlous state, and I cut it right down and it's grown up again. So it's got a bit of a new lease of life. And then I've got some trees in the hedge. There's a hawthorn there and a quince there. These were tiny 6 years ago. And a bird cherry there, and they seem to be just doing quite fine. This is one that I'm worried about. It's a silver birch, and some of the branches, there's very few leaves on them. And in fact, these down here are just dead. No green at all. And yet, there's a leaf growing out of that branch, which has very few leaves on. A few more at the tips. This one is a rowan. It's not the native rowan, it's a cultivar. I do have a native rowan over the road, which is fully out in leaf now. So maybe it's something about it being a cultivar that it's late. But the leaves do seem to be okay. And there seem to be a fair number of them. So I think that tree is okay. Also seems to be producing some flowers as well. And this is a hawthorn too. But again, it's a cultivar. It's not the native, it's a pink one, although it's never flowered, and it's a lot later than the native ones, but it does seem to be coming into leaf. There does seem to be plenty of leaves there, although I'm not sure they're all very healthy. This is the one I'm particularly worried about. It's a flowering cherry. It's a winter flowering cherry, and it's always been a bit confused about what time of year to flower. But this spring, look, hardly any of the leaves have come out at all. It's obviously alive because there are sprouts coming out of the trunk down at the bottom. And there seem to be some sprouts coming from the trunk there, where all the main branches come off. And there are a very few sprouts coming out of a very few branches. And some of the leaves don't look very healthy. So yeah, so I really don't know what to do. As I said, I've never sort of managed trees before because I've never had a garden big enough. So if any of you have any idea what I can do, I'll be very grateful for some advice. Something very similar seems to be happening to this viburnum. It has lots of bare branches with some very unhealthy leaves and a few healthy ones right at the top. But quite a few healthy sprouts in various places. So I'm not so worried about this. I think this is going to survive. It's just going to look a bit odd for a while. And this witch hazel just next door flowered beautifully in January and February, but most of the leaves haven't come out apart from just on the end of some of the branches. So I wonder why it is just these bushes and this tree in this area. Was it some kind of freak frost? We did have a couple of frosts, sort of mid to late April. Maybe that was what did it. But I think maybe I'm just going to leave them as they are and trust that nature will look after my trees. Trust that nature knows what she's doing and that my trees will be okay. And even if they don't come fully into leaf and some of the branches die, they're still fulfilling one of their main functions, which is perching places for birds. This part of the garden is looking good at the moment, with that bright red azalea and the pieris there, a bit more subtle. But I do have to say that none of this is anything to do with me. These were all here when I arrived. And the azalea on the corner there of the slope up to the shed is just coming out, ready to take over from the bright red one. And just an update on the weed killer story. This is how the front looks at the moment. I've actually emailed the council twice to see if they'll give me a date as to when they're coming with the weed killer so I can actually be here and make sure they don't spray. But I haven't heard anything back. But to be fair, he may not be able to tell me, because you do have to spray when it's dry and it's not going to rain within a certain time period. I don't know what it is, and maybe he's not been able to do that. So I've painted myself a couple of signs. I've put one there by the back gate. So I've got this wonderful thistle here. And I've got another sign there by the side of my front step. So I'm going to see if these signs survive, because, you know, a passing person might decide to pick one up or both of them and take them away. And if they do, I'm going to put another one down here. So I'll come back to the azalea and the pieris just to say bye. So thanks for visiting me in my wild Welsh garden. Thanks for watching the video, and hope to see you again next time. Bye. Hwyl fawr.